All right, now we're going to do one example of a chi-square test for homogeneity. Now, this test, keep in mind for homogeneity, it has to come from multiple SRSs. So what they did here is their question was, does background music influence wine purchases? So what they did is, whenever you look at data like this, the first thing you do is put it into a table. Then you look at the summary, the marginal data, and they played music, or first they didn't play music, and they looked to see how people bought wine. They played French music and saw how people bought wine. Then they played Italian music and saw how people bought wine. And they wanted to see if background music influences wine purchases. So the first thing we can do, or not the first thing, another thing we can do is usually we look at a conditional distribution to see if there's anything that we can see. So when we do a conditional distribution, uh, what we do is all of the totals will add up to 100%. So when they're playing no music, let's see what the totals were. So 30 out of 84 gives us about 36%. Italian music was 11 out of 84, which is about 13%. And then 43 out of 84 is about 51%. Now for French music, uh, 39 out of 75, you can see when they played French music, it looked like people bought a little bit more. The Italian wines look like it went down because that's only about 1%. And then the other type of wine looked like it went down maybe a little bit too, 46%. So it looks like maybe there was more French bought when French wine was played, French music was played. Now Italian, we do 30 over 84. That's about 36%. And then 19 out of 84 is 23%. And finally, 35 out of 84. So that's about 42%, 41.6, 42-ish. So it looks like when they played these types of music, the other went down slightly. When they played Italian music, it went up, and then French didn't seem to be all that affected whether they were playing no music or Italian music. That's just from this. So let's see if there is statistical evidence, because it's going to vary a little bit just by taking random samples. We want to see if if there's statistical evidence. So once you have conditional distributions, it's good to graph them so you get some visual representation. See how Italian wine's pretty low when French music was played. That's one striking thing that I would find. Now let's perform a chi-square test for homogeneity to see if music influences wine sales. So we start off with our null hypothesis. Music does not influence wine sales. Your alternative hypothesis, music influences wine sales. That's it. Pretty easy. Conditions. Data come from multiple SRSs. Expected counts. So we have to look at our expected counts. All right, so let's look back at our values here. So we do 84 times 99 over 243, 75 times 99 over 243, and so on. And that would just be the top row. Then for this middle row, 84 times 31 over 243, and so on until we got all the values. I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch me go through all that. All right, now I have the expected counts, and all of the values are above 5. So I can just say all expected counts are above 5. Now keep in mind, if 1 is not, it's not that big of a deal, just as long as there's not 20% or more that are below 5. So now we'll look at the calculations. So we use, we should say, we use a chi-square test for homogeneity. Start that off, making sure we know what we're doing. And now we do the formula. The formula for all chi-squared tests is the sum of observed minus expected squared over expected. So now we have to take each observed count minus our expected count squared over our expected count. Showing your work gets a little long for this. I'll show you the first couple, and then we'll go back to this. So the first one is 30. So I'm going to say 30 minus 34.2 squared over 34.2 plus the next value, which is 39. So we have 39 minus 30.6 squared over 30.6 plus, and hopefully you get the point. So I'm just going to pause it. All right, if you write this out and add them up, you get 18.28 for my chi-squared statistic. So my p-value would be 0.001. So we do our last step, which we interpret. So our interpretation, we reject the null hypothesis. Because the p-value is below alpha of 0.05, we have evidence that music affects the wine that people buy. That's that, and that's the chi-square test for homogeneity.